wanted to ask you about Dallas in particular because obviously there was the shooting at police, I think 2 years ago, that led to police officers being killed. But what is the dynamic between the community and the police here? We've interviewed some people so far. It seems like it's very similar to other cities like St. Louis and Chicago, where especially black people think they're targets, and they are being targeted, whereas the police are, kind of serving up platitudes that that's not the case.
I think Dallas's self-perception of its relationship between the police and the community is that we're better than places like St. Louis. I think that activists who are seeking police reform can point to data that show that we over-police communities of color just like everywhere else. But in terms of actual public complaints about police misconduct and maybe in terms of total use of force, we might be slightly better than your average big city. We'd like to be a lot better. I mean, and I think that's the opportunity that we have here is that if everyone can reach a point of trusting each other where they're not worried that special favors are being done one way or another, there is a chance to use this opportunity on the heels of the July 7th killing of the 5 police officers and the Jordan Edwards murder, several other incidents. I think there's a chance that we can make some breakthroughs. People are talking about reforms that were completely off the table a year ago.
Like what? What kind of reforms?
Like giving the Police Civilian Review Board subpoena power. Our Police Civilian Review Board rarely even sees an officer because they refuse to attend.
So it's basically a committee without power.
Bingo.
And, bigger picture, because I think in a lot of these cases, I mean, obviously our national media, it's basically just Trump 24/7, so everything else falls through the cracks. That's why we're doing what we're doing. But, with Trayvon Martin or Michael Brown or these other cases, I mean, when there was finally media attention or when there were protests like daily, when the media finally showed up, it was when there looked like there could be a shooting at the OK Corral. Whereas this, I mean, obviously I'm not a black person, so I frame my words carefully, but this is a whole new level. I mean, we're familiar with pulling over someone for expired registration and that leading to a shooting. We're familiar with pulling over people and that leading to senseless murder. But this is literally going to someone's home who there's no warrant to go to his home. There's no that we know of, because maybe they did have a relationship that we don't know of yet. But this is literally just straight up murder of a black person in their apartment. Do you think if there isn't more transparency that this could become, I don't want to say the next Ferguson, but this could become a much bigger thing? Because from what the people we're talking to, the tension and the heat among the community is rising by the day.
I don't have my pulse. I don't have my fingers on the pulse of the African American community, particularly the ones who are, criminal justice reform advocates. I communicate with them, but they could tell you better than I could if there's a danger of unrest. In Dallas, we've never had serious racial unrest in the sort of massive demonstration type way. The city is very proud. The city's white leadership is very proud of the fact that we've never had a race riot here. And so I don't know what the chances are of that kind of reaction. But when the treatment, when it looks like the rule of law is less important than protecting police officers, that can't help, right? That's not going to lead to a more peaceful outcome.
Right. And let me ask you, because we interviewed 2 of the 9 that were arrested. I mean, you have the officer who shot a man dead, for all we know, a stranger. She's out in an hour, but you have 9 people who are protesting, and according to them, basically it was over, they were walking away, and they're arrested and then kept in there for 40 hours, so almost 3 full days. What is the rhyme or reason to that? It seems like they're basically trying to shut up the protesters and leave them in jail for much longer than they should have been.
Well, we should point out that those protesters were in the next county over, in Tarrant County, at the Cowboys Stadium. And so their beef is more with the Arlington police and the Tarrant County district attorney, who most assuredly screwed that up real bad.
Okay. So that's not a Dallas thing.
That's actually not Dallas. We actually have a county that maybe treats people even worse.
And my final question is this, as far as the 911 call, the police records, these kinds of things, what do you see happening as far as, does there need to be an additional pressure campaign to get those things released? Are they, she was talking, the district attorney, as in, we're going to take our time before going to the grand jury. So as of now, it seems like these unanswered questions and lack of transparency can continue on indefinitely. What needs to happen as far as people here and people watching from all over the country? Because there's been some national media articles and stories about this, but there's not a lot of, on-the-ground coverage. I think this could evolve into something bigger and worse if we don't start getting some answers.
Well, in some ways it's a two-pronged strategy that needs to occur. Whether those things are to be released is right now being considered by the Texas Attorney General, which I note with a bit of irony is a gentleman who is himself under felony indictment in the state. And so he's going to decide whether some other accused person has the investigative records released. I don't trust that judgment very much, but I think he has like 30 days left. He has 45 days from the time that the Rangers asked him to rule that they didn't have to release this information. So that's kind of the technical legal approach. The news organizations who've requested these records need to get their lawyers good and riled up and ready to go. But as we have seen, all of these people seem to cave to public pressure. And so, yes, the more of it we can bring to bear, the better. And I don't want to do that simply for the purpose of creating havoc. It's so that the public sees the information to which it has rights to know. And it's very clear that when you release responsibly records that have already been evaluated in an investigation, not with trying to spin them, not with selective release, but release in the normal course of the Public Information Act in Texas or the federal Freedom of Information Act on the federal level, that treating everything in the normal course of business leads to accurate reporting, which makes it less likely that you're going to taint a jury pool.